Good morning, Kitchissippi. It is Saturday, June the 22nd, and this is a video version of the 396th Kitchissippi Ward Weekly Newsletter. You can sign up for the weekly newsletter at kitchissippiward.ca. I have lots more details in there every week about the issues that we'll be talking about, links, information, agendas, and more. This is a beefy agenda. I don't have a lot of local updates today, but certainly a lot is going on citywide. Let's jump right in. First, I want to make a quick note that it is summertime. City Council is going to be busy for another couple of weeks, and then things will slow down. I'm planning on taking the first 3 weeks of August off, so my office will be a little bit quieter during that time, and certainly committee and council work will start to slow down as we approach the fall. But there are a couple of very busy weeks still left, and you know what? It's summertime. For a lot of us, that means that we're going to be catching up on our reading, maybe taking advantage of the summer months to do some easier reading, some good cottage reads. The Ottawa Public Library has got what it is calling the Adult Library Challenge on right now to explore more of the services, resources, and collections in the Ottawa Public Library system. I've got a link in the newsletter for how you can participate in that. I am going to be hosting one more pop-up office hours session. Those are going to be on June the 26th. That's the Wednesday from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. I'll be at La Roche Park, just off of Stonehurst and Burnside. If it is raining, we'll be inside the Keith Brown Community Facility. Those will be my last pop-up office hours until we get into the fall. A session that I want to take note of, Councillors Catherine Kitts, Lane Johnson, and I have organized an armchair panel discussion. We're going to have some experts in to talk about the comprehensive zoning bylaw review and the things that are going to be important to residents. That armchair is going to be held in person at Center Point at Ben Franklin Place on July 8th during the evening, and you can also participate by tuning in online. I've got details about how you can register either in person or online in the newsletter. This afternoon, I am standing in Armstrong Park. I'm looking at Armstrong in front of me. Behind me is Loudy Sur, just behind the houses there. I am thrilled to say that we have acquired the second of those houses to be turned into parkland. So the two houses behind us that are adjacent to the park have now been acquired by the city so that we can effectively double the size of this park. Thrilling news. There's going to be consultations coming up on what we should do with it, but I am really pleased to say that we're going to be able to double the size of this park in an area that needs more green space. I do want to give a special thanks to Councillor Ariel Truster, who has been kind enough, while there's a dispute between the builders and the city around our parkland dedication bylaw that has resulted in a sequestration, if you will, of the funds that are available to me in our cash in lieu of parkland ward fund. Councillor Truster has stepped up to lend us those dollars until our dollars are freed up. So stay tuned for more information about how you can participate in a consultation. It might not be quick with respect to how to use the two parcels behind us. I would expect demolition to occur sometime in the relatively near future. The Committee of Adjustment, I can only reiterate what I said last week. We don't have the staff comments yet for either of 514 Churchill North, where the owner is seeking to subdivide the property into two lots to create one new lot for residential development while keeping the existing triplex. And at 370 Princeton, I know I've heard from a couple of you about this one, the owner is seeking to subdivide the property into two lots for two 3-story, 8-unit low-rise apartment dwellings. They're looking for variances associated with lot width, lot area, corner and interior side yards, increased number of dwelling units, and building height. I am taking a closer look at this particular one in light of some of the new zoning that we have in Westboro, so I'll be staying tuned for the staff comments on that one. Coming up at Transportation Committee on June 27th, no surprise, city staff have recommended the implementation of paid parking on the main corridor from Somerset, Wellington, and Richmond Road, essentially from Breeze Hill to Broadview. The Transportation Committee is going to be debating that implementation on June the 27th. No surprise either. I have been telegraphing for a few months. I am not opposing the implementation of that paid parking. I do expect that it's going to pass through committee without a lot of pushback from my colleagues, but I will be asking my colleagues to support a motion that I'm hoping to bring to delay the implementation of that paid parking until Stage 2 LRT is up and running through the West Extension. That might result in a delay of a year or two from when they were planning on implementing the paid parking to begin with, just to give a good public transportation alternative to the many staff who hitherto have been relying on that street parking. There is, again, there are two open houses coming up, one virtual, one in person, to take a look at the connection from Dow's Lake Station to the Ottawa Hospital. When the Ottawa Hospital opens, we're going to be counting on LRT, which I hope will be open north-south relatively soon, in order to get people to and from the hospital, reduce some of the parking demands, reduce some of the traffic demand. The city is proposing to build a bridge over Carling, a series of elevators to get people across very busy Carling Avenue. You can take a look at the plans that they're providing at a virtual open house that's going to be on June 24th. I think that's this Monday night from 6 until 8:30 p.m. And then on June, that's the virtual consultation. And then on June 25th, there will be an in-person open house held during, I think it's those same hours, at Tom Brown Arena. Do take a look at the newsletter for the precise details and information for how to register if you're going to take part in the online discussion. The online discussion is going to offer a Q&A. The in-person discussion at the Tom Brown Arena is going to be boards and more informal opportunity to take a look at the plans. The LRT is going to have to be shut down between Tunney's Pasture and Rideau from July 15th until July 28th. They'll have R1 service in place to replace that train service as they do some maintenance. The Hintonburg 5K, one of my favorite events, obviously, is coming up really quickly now on Sunday, July the 14th. There's also the Kids 1K. Registration is open online at hintonburg5k.com. I've got a link in the newsletter. I know I plan on volunteering at one of the intersections this year, not something I've had the opportunity to do before. That's always one of their biggest volunteer needs, and it is critical to ensuring a safe race. So if you're not planning on participating, running in either the 1K or the 5K, please consider getting a hold of the Hintonburg Community Association and volunteering your time for an hour that morning to supervise an intersection. Another reminder that there are social Sundays here in Wellington West. Throughout Hintonburg and Wellington Village on Sunday afternoons. The Wellington West BIA is hosting programming that's featuring a number of the businesses that are along the stretch. I've got a link in the newsletter to where you can find more information about that. And in the meantime, in Westboro on, I believe it is Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning until August 31st, the Westboro Village BIA is hosting various different kinds of fitness classes in Lions Park. Those fitness classes are available for, I think it's a minimum $10 donation that's going to assist Churchill Alternative School. There's more information in the newsletter about how you can participate in some of those wellness classes as part of the Wellness in Westboro series. So the beefy part of the agenda, bear with me while I run through the various committee and council meetings that are coming up for the next several weeks. The Audit Committee is going to be closely watched on June the 24th. The Auditor General has brought a results of her Agile report on the Lansdowne 2.0 project. The AG has found that costs are going to be significantly higher than were first anticipated, has identified some potential risks in the project in terms of the future revenues that we're counting on. No one has pretended that this is a revenue neutral project, but city staff have asserted to us that it can be afforded with an absolute $5 million per year of tax money to help service the debt that will be brought on, in addition to other revenues as part of a waterfall agreement. The Auditor General, I think, is calling some of that into question. Residents will remember I voted against redeveloping Lansdowne, partly on the basis that past history doesn't provide a good demonstration that some of those financial forecasts are going to come true. I did vote in favor of the procurement just because city staff went away and developed a procurement process that largely reflected what council told them to do. But we still have that off-ramp coming when council will be asked to vote on a final bid. The results of this audit are going to, I think, give councillors pause when they go to decide whether or not to finally vote in favor of proceeding with Lansdowne 2.0. I've got all the documents, my newsletter has got a link to the agenda with all of those documents. City Council is going to meet on June 25th. There's a few higher profile items I expect are going to create some discussion. Most of the agenda will be relatively uncontentious items that have risen through the committee process over the past couple of weeks. The Ottawa Markets is going to host their annual general meeting during our council meeting. We're the sole shareholder. I expect there might be some questions about, the evolving Byward market situation, as well as continued questions about how we might overcome some of the same challenges that are being faced right across North America in terms of getting some increased local food vending, more regular local food vending in both our Parkdale and our Byward markets. The infrastructure master plan, which was approved last week at our joint committee meeting, will come forward. I expect there will be some further discussion about that, particularly with respect to servicing Taywin down the road. Otherwise, I expect we're going to spend a lot of our time in that meeting receiving an in-camera legal update related to LRT. Councillor Johnson has got a motion that's coming forward on reduced fertility measures to reduce the population of rats in Ottawa. I expect that might see some additional discussion tangential to the actual motion itself. Rats are always a contentious topic here in the city. The Community Services Committee is going to meet on June the 26th. I think there's two headline items. The first is what I'll call our shelter update. I believe it's officially called the Transition to Permanent Housing Strategy. But we in the city have been dealing with a relatively unprecedented influx of newcomers. Those of us in Kitchissippi know the Graham Spry building has been put to the service of serving as overflow shelter to our shelter system itself, kind of overflow to the overflow. There's a bunch of statistics and information about where we're going with that in an update that's going to be provided to the committee. No action required on the part of city councillors, but I think an important document for those who are interested in housing the unhoused to take a look at. There's also going to be a update proposed for our commemorative naming policies. I'm really interested to see the formalization of an Algonquin elders consultation table when we propose to use Algonquin Anishinaabe words in our commemorative naming. Residents will know that I've proposed an Algonquin name for the new parklet that's at Spencer, and I'm really pleased to see that there is the formalization of the consultation to make sure that that is appropriate and meets with the approval of our host nation. The Transportation Committee, I talked about paid parking, is going to be meeting on June the 27th. They've got an information update with respect to the parking rates, how they're going to set those. They're going to present their annual 2023 report, including how to allocate the grants that come out of paid parking to the BIAs that have paid parking. So besides the Kitchissippi parking strategy, which I expect will be the big discussion at that meeting, lots of other parking discussion as well. The Finance and Corporate Services Committee is going to meet on Tuesday, July the 2nd. This will be a really beefy meeting. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get into all of these items in any kind of depth, but there is a report on providing tax relief to affordable housing developments. There will be an information update on staff's work towards a policy framework for voluntary benefits. That kind of blew up as an issue a few months ago. There is a proposal to consider with respect to building a new 50 meter and a new 25 meter pool in partnership with Carleton University, which I think is great news for our ward since it'll be right on the LRT if that moves ahead. There is also the proposed acquisition at 1754 St. Joseph Boulevard of some property for transitional housing, and there seems to be a resolution on the table for a land swap near Petrie Island on Tweddle as the city and the developer down there try to improve the public realm. So I think that's going to be a relatively lengthy meeting. I don't take any particular issue, as I've read the reports thus far, with any of the documents, but I know it's going to generate a lot of discussion and debate. And I think finally on the Planning and Housing Committee, we're going to meet on July the 3rd. We've got a relatively workaday agenda. We're going to be asked to approve a very tall, dense development at the old bus station on Catherine, a low-rise 41-unit apartment building on Empress for Dalhousie not-for-profit housing, an 18-story tower at 3030 St. Joseph, tall, dense development at 78 and 80 Woodbridge, just west of Bay Shore. So all of those proposals that we're going to be asked to vote on, as well as a proposal to modify the demolition control bylaw. The demolition control bylaw essentially controls against demolition of residential housing in residential zones where there are no plans in place to replace that housing with housing. It has become relatively routine for councillors, including myself, to bring motions to council to ask that demolition control be waived, as we struggle with vacant buildings that then become problem properties here in the city. But we don't want to see incentives to developers to purchase houses, kick people out, then just let them sit and then knock them down just sitting on the vacant land. So that is a difficult topic. There are proposals for modification to allow developers to knock down houses when they have certain Planning Act approvals through delegated authority from staff, rather than councillors having to come with these waiver motions. I'll be curious to hear what the community has to say. I'll be curious to hear what my colleagues have to say. And then finally, we're going to receive a bunch of metrics related to the official plan, the annual development report. They're proposing to move some of the stats that I follow closely from the annual development report into the new official plan baseline monitoring report, I believe they call it. So a meaty Planning and Housing Committee agenda on July the 3rd. Again, I've got a link to all these committees' agendas online where you'll find all of the associated documents. That is the newsletter for this week. I've included in the newsletter this week a link to Peter Joynt's Island Park Drive, one of the chillest songs I've ever heard about an Ottawa street. You can tune into that, enjoy the vibe, and enjoy the ride. Kitchissippi, I want to say thank you very much for tuning in to this week's video version of the newsletter. I hope you have a great week. Thanks for watching.